We welcome all to the event. The theme for today is Arm Your Small Business to Fight Cybercrime. It's easier than you think. And this is the last of a three-part series. Some of you have joined us for the first two parts, so we thank you for being here for the last part of these series. And the rest, well, we welcome you as well. We encourage audience feedback. You can use the raised hand feature during parts where we'll have audience participation. You can also use the chat if you'd like. So we encourage interaction. Why is it good for you to be here today? Well, I've often heard business owners express their frustration regarding cybersecurity and how tired they are of hearing news reports about company after company being affected by ransomware. They feel like there's no point in trying to do something about it. The reality is, you may not be able to do something about hackers and threat actors getting better at what they do each day, but you can do something to minimize the impact one of these events may have on your business. So today we will review some things that will help you to start thinking about what you can do to plan for a more secure network environment. Securing your technology may seem overwhelming, but it's not rocket science. It is also not as expensive as many might imagine. And as a business owner, you can understand the basics so that you can make informed business decisions related to technology and cybersecurity. So just a brief introduction before we get started. My name is Elizabeth with Select Secure Solutions. We are a local IT company here in Laredo with a focus on cybersecurity. And these are some of the services that we offer: endpoint security, Microsoft 365, business phones, cyber insurance, email security. So if you want to get in touch with us after the webinar, you can email us at ask@selectsecuresolutions.com. And you can also call or text our main number, 956-750-7310. Well, now I will turn it over to Chris. Enjoy the presentation.
So we want you to ask questions, whether you work with us or not. We like to share. So what's going to be our focus? Well, we're going to focus on education. This is you. Education. But we know with education, you have to know, well, what are some things that you might be able to do. So we're going to be focusing on 3 E's: education, engineering, meaning what are some controls that you will be able to implement. And then the third will be enforcement. What are some things that now you will be able to enforce in your business? So that's easy enough. Education, engineering, and enforcement. So let's just start here with something that you're familiar with. This is your home. So how would you physically secure it? So you can feel free to use the chat. How would you physically secure your home? What are some thoughts? Someone mentioned we put up a gate. Okay. But what else might you do physically to secure you? Might think of some of the things that you may have now. Cameras, right? What else might you do to secure your home? Security, all right. So you want some lights, really some of those motion sensor lights. So if someone comes up, you're alerted. Very good. What else might you put up there to secure your home? Alarm system. All right. So we're starting to get the point. You can even see there's a door there. What's probably one of the things you want to make sure you have on that door? You want to make sure it's locked, right? So that's real, and that's relatively simple. So when we think about the home and what you might do to physically secure it, let's just change the scenario. It's your business. How would you physically secure your business? Really, would you do anything differently than what you might do in your home? Would you still make sure you have a lock? You have the alarm system, security lights, maybe cameras. Would you have motion detectors, things of that sort? And no doubt you probably wouldn't change much. You may even add to it. And so it may look something like this. How many would you say that this might be good for your business? If you have a physical place that you have, or even if it's an office space that you rent, is that what you might have? And if you notice here, there might even be some other pieces there. You may need to have all these things in place, but what happens when the alarm goes off? Isn't that's where you make sure that you have the human element there, watching. So so we start to see from a physical standpoint, it's easy to start to pinpoint what you can do physically to secure your business. Call the police, but you can only call the police if you know the alarm's going off, right? So many will implement humans, a company that can monitor the office so that the alarm goes off, a window sensor, a door, they give you a call. Sometimes it's no one trying to break in, right? Perhaps sometimes it's because of the door. There's a wind and it loosens things and it moves the sensor, and so you have alarms. You have the alarms going off, but that's a good thing because now it gives you something to fix. So still thinking about the physical security. Take this key. This is what you have to lock your door before you leave. You set the alarm. You have everything. But what starts to happen as your business grows? Have you ever given a key to different ones? Maybe you go on as your business begins to grow. You hire a manager, and the manager gets a key person. Maybe it's a shift depending on your business. Maybe it's a different person that has a role, a shift leader. Maybe it's someone that opens, someone who closes, and maybe you even have someone who cleans the office, and they're going to come in after hours and they start to clean. And as your business grows, maybe there's other opportunities. Maybe someone leaves, but they told you, I can't. They never returned the key, so you have another key out. You have to make another key, and this goes on. But now someone else, maybe they couldn't show up one day, and they give the key. They tell someone, you know what? Can you cover for me? So they make a key, give it to them. Now let me ask you something. Do you have control over what your employees do once they have a copy of your key? Because sooner or later, then maybe someone else, they said, let me just, you make a copy, they lose the key and you can't find it, so now there's another copy going around. And before you know it, who knows how many copies of keys you have? Have you thought about that? If you think about that for a moment, who has a copy of your office key right now? Now what we're going to do is there's just take a look at that first question, and maybe you can answer that on the poll. Should have separated them, but just answer number one. Just think about number one. Do you change your lock alarm code after an employee leaves? And maybe you didn't get the key. What's your thoughts there? You can put that in the chat, maybe. They should have been separate questions there. So, so what would you say? Is that something that you do? Maybe you can just put it in the chat. Would you change your key every time an employee leaves? Have you done that? Have you left? Maybe have you left and forgot to turn in your key if you work somewhere? And then you find out it still works? Or maybe the alarm code, right? So you start thinking about that. Would that be a concern that now you don't know someone has a key now to get into your place, to your business physically? And let me ask you this: if they had a copy of the key and your alarm code because you didn't change it, would you know if someone went in there after hours? And so if you've just joined us, we were just talking about the link between, with just looking at physical security. And perhaps if you've ever been employed or had employees and where you left the business and you did not return the key, and maybe they didn't change the locks. So
Yes, that has happened. It even happened to the point where it was supposed to be a personal identifying like code to be able to get into the building, right? So everybody supposedly had their alarm code, and it was commonly shared between everybody. And then it didn't change when you would leave.
isn't that horrible? So now you never know who's going to be implicated if something does happen. They're going to say, they use that pin. So we're just looking at physically, and sometimes these are things that are forgotten about when it comes to physical security. And so now let's link this and connect this with, here we are, we have your business here. And now let's think about how you might secure it against cybercrime. Now we're going to move into the digital space. Would you do what could you add to your business to secure it in the digital world? We talked about what you could do in the physical space and things that individuals might do to get around security, things that are shared. But what about in the cyberspace? Now, this is what the current cybersecurity looks like in most offices. We might say small businesses. And the government identifies small as if you have less than 100 employees, micro if you're 10 employees or less, including the owner. Now, they may have very basic protection, meaning they may have very little control over what's going on. You may have the modem connected from your internet provider. Maybe it's AT&T, Spectrum, someone else. If you have fiber coming in, then perhaps you have a Wi-Fi router you picked up. But would you agree that many may not really know what to do? They may not be able to control them because they're not really aware of why a certain configuration needed, nor do they know how to do it. And so some of the things that you might that's also is part of this are, you think about passwords, email security. Some of them have those things. And then there's policies and procedures. Now some of these are all things that are added. And sometimes the email security you don't have control over because it's free. And maybe you implement policies and procedures. You know what to do, things that you want individuals to do. But as we discussed with the keys, what may not happen? Someone may find a way around them. So, if this is the current state of cybersecurity in the office, let's talk about some reasons why you may need to make some changes and the steps that you can take. So, So let's get into some of the practical things. So here we are. We have the devices. Average person, how many devices do you think they have? You know, we may have a computer, a desktop, we may have a laptop, you may have a phone, you have a tablet, all different things, 2 to 5, different things. Microsoft even, you know, they've made it part of their policy that says, you know what, if you get Microsoft 365, you can put it on 5 devices, 5 mobile devices, 5 desktops. So they give you up to 10. So here's a practical thing that's done. When someone gets a new computer, you set up your user, and what do? You make your first user. Do you remember what you have to put in? Because you have to make a user, give it a password. Does anyone know the first user that's made on the computer? Does anyone know the permissions that user has? If you know it, put it in the chat, or you can mention it. The first user, the admin, the administrator. And for most, we see this in small businesses. They begin making users, and guess what starts to happen? The first user that they make, well, they're running as an administrator. And what can you do as an administrator? You can do anything that you want. Anything. So here's the first thing that we want you to implement, if possible. Do not work as an administrator. Because what happens if you inadvertently click on a link? You know, in Windows, if you have something that needs permission, there's going to be a pop-up. But what if you unknowingly click on a link and you give a threat actor access? Maybe it's because there was a Word document or something, a PDF, and it ran something in the background as the administrator. Or now they would have control over your device, and you wouldn't know. They just sneak in. Now here's another scenario. What if now you have multiple, you start growing and you add computers into your business, and what do most do? We're creatures of habit. You make a new user, and maybe it's going to have the same name. You're going to log in because you don't want anything different. Maybe it's the first user. Maybe you even call it admin, whatever the case is. But you use the same password. Now, guess what? Guess what happens if that threat actor just got onto your first computer? Now, what happens? Now the threat actor has access to the next computer, and the next computer, and the next computer, any computer on your network that has the same password. And would you even be alerted that they are on your network and roaming around doing whatever that they would like? Would you even know that was happening? No. That's like someone going in, as you said, they shared the PIN, and you wouldn't have known they were authorized. And so they got in, you wouldn't know unless you looked at the log. It's like, who was here working at 3 in the morning? Or whenever. What were they doing taking these files or that? So we're going to show you something. Does everyone know how to change the user from an admin to a standard user? Let's just see if we can add another document here, because I want you to see. So here we have. You should see now this Word document. Can you guys see that there? Yeah. All right. So what you can do is and we can share this out to you as a PDF, because this is something we want you to implement. Is you can go in there to settings. You go in there to settings, click on accounts, and you're going to see this screen. And you're going to add someone else. This is the admin, the first user you made. So let's say you clicked on it. Now you have your new user. Well, now you make your new user, and what you do is I do not have this person sign in, because you want to make a local user. So you select that, and you may have logged in the first time with maybe a Windows, a Microsoft account, or maybe you used your Gmail address, and that one's an administrator. Well, you're going to follow these particular steps because you want it to be a local account. So you'll click next, and you'll go in there, and you'll select add user without a Microsoft account. You figure out what the name's going to be. Maybe this one's going to be your true admin user, and you give it a name, whatever name you'd like. You can be creative, the boss, whatever, or it can be inconspicuous. And now you make it you give each computer a separate password, and with the hints. And then what you do now is you go back into settings. You log in now as your new user. Test your password, make sure you get in there. Now you log in, go back to settings, and select change account type, and you're going to change your old user that you've been using to a standard user. So now once you log back in as the user you've been using, that user no longer has administrator permissions. So anytime something tries to run as an admin, there's going to be a box that now you're going to have to do what? Type in the credentials for your new admin account. Does that make sense? So that's something practical that you can do. Doesn't cost you anything, but some time. But now you are notified. So here's the thing. Could a threat actor still get past this? Is this totally secure? It is not. But guess what? If something tries to run, you're going to start putting out excluding a lot of things, because if something tries to run as an administrator, you're going to be alerted to that. There's going to be a pop-up box that says, "Hey," he's like, "I didn't try to install anything." So they can still run things as a local user, but they wouldn't have full control. So what a threat actor will do then is they're going to try to figure out, how do I become an administrator? So as the local user, they can still find out who lives here, what users are there, and find out who has the permissions. And what they'll try to do then is, can they crack your password or trick you into typing the password in for them? So that's something that you can do now. Provide you some extra security. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but some time. So that's the first thing. Now let's get back to our, that's the end of our first. Do not work as the administrator. Let's see. Let me get my video panel back up. All right, now we're on the right screen there. Okay. So, what's the next? Now let's move on to our next point here. So here you are. This is you as the business owner. Let's take what we learned from before. Now you're the business owner, and guess what you need to do? you have to set up an online account somewhere. So what do? There's an online account for everything, it seems. Maybe you need an online account to register your business. You need an online account for sales tax. You're going to purchase some software. There's a portal for everything. So what do? You have a super secret secure password. And what do many people do? We're creatures of habit. We may we may on that next portal. You ever find yourself using the same password over and over and over and over again? You ever find yourself doing that for every account? You end up using the same password because nobody knows it. Because if you change it, then it's on a sticky note on your monitor. Just the other day, just yesterday, went into do a job, and I get there, didn't have they were trying to have a separate password for everything. They weren't making the same mistake as this person here. Because it's not only that, but sometimes then when you hire individuals, you have to share the password because they don't really allow you to set up other accounts, child accounts. And so maybe they have to log in as that one main user. So now that password is shared. And something that we've seen as well, just like the keys, they don't always change that password. So now individuals are gone, and maybe they had a shared email address that everyone was using, and it was one where they all have to log in to access it. So 10 people have left, and the email password is still the same. All their account passwords are still the same. And so the question is, who has access to those passwords? When they're on sticky notes, if you have someone that cleans your business or vendor that comes in and they see that, do we really know the moral character of everyone? People snap pictures all the time. So the question is, who now has access to them? Because you put down maybe what it's for, along with the username and the password. You ever thought about that? So we don't want to be like this person. This is certainly to an extreme, but these are things that happen. Instead, this is you. And you've learned that something that you need to do now is have a unique password for every place you log in. Now, the brain can handle it, whether you believe it or not. But we won't rely on just memory, will we? You see, because you realize that maybe you should get a password manager. A password manager so that now you can have a unique password for every website that you're going to log into. And you're going to store it because what you're going to use is a secret long password phrase that you won't forget. That'll be your one password to remember, and you will not write it down. So, a password manager. And what you also decide to do, maybe you've heard that some accounts will allow you to add two-factor authentication. And what happens then is that maybe they will send you a text, 6-digit code or 8-digit code, or you use a Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. Many different web services, they have their own authenticator, and they may even give you a push notification alert. Now, when you get to this point, oh, that's a good thing. And so, what is a password manager? A password manager it will manage all of the passwords. And here's something that's pretty interesting about them. Maybe you thought, well, I'll just save them all in my browser. When you have a password manager, A password manager will show you just how easily someone could take the passwords from your browser. Because when you install a password manager, it will ask you, would you like us to take the passwords from your browser and bring them all in? And just like that, they are all in your password manager. So now you can have a unique place to store passwords, and you can have permissions to share passwords with others. Meaning you can help them. You can make it permission so that they could see the password, edit the password, or just use the password and not see it. So different things. Here's why this is so helpful. Let's just say you have someone trying to impersonate you. Do the websites or the accounts know it's not really you? I mean, if they use your username and password, they're very well you, right? So it looks just like you. But this person's already tried. He's tried and he's like, I can't get in because they have two-factor and it's not the same password they had before. It's a different password. So how am I going to get it? Well, so this threat actor is pretty smart because it starts to think, you know what? Maybe if I just send them an email, a phishing email. Now what's going to happen when someone tries to log into that account? And you can see the phishing email went off, and you have your new unique password for this particular account, and the email has now arrived. What will you do? Will you click it? And perhaps you're using, as well with that, two-factor authentication. And you're either going to get your code or a push notification alert. Now we're going to tell you something that happened. This really happened. There was a user that it was after hours, and someone had figured out their password, and so they got a push notification alert. They got another push notification alert. They got another one, another one, another one, another one. There was 8 of them. The 9th one, guess what happened? They were just, they're entertaining guests. Guess what happened on the 9th one? The alerts kept going off. The alarm's going off. Someone's accessing my account, and I'm here entertaining guests. They hit approve on the phone. Guess who now has access? Threat actors in. The alarms went off. They had things set up right in the beginning, but it just didn't, they weren't vigilant enough. Now here's something else to add to that. Without the proper setup, someone could still get into the account. Now this happened as well to another. What wasn't us? It was a partner, and they went on to relate how this happened. And we've seen this happen all the time. That upon configuration, that sometimes they don't really secure it as well as they should. Now, so this is a configuration error, which is just like you have your alarm and everything set up. You have everything set up, but yet you leave the key underneath that back door that doesn't have a sensor on it, and the key's under the mat. And once they open up the door, there's the key panel for the alarm as well, and in there it has the pin for the code. And so once they get in, they just turn the alarm off. And so what happened is now they were able to log into their email, these other accounts, because they had an insecure method of logging in, and so they did not have to put in their two-factor. They did not get a push notification. So sometimes it's errors on user configuration, or we're distracted, and we may just give them access because we're just like, I'm tired of all these alerts. Could you see something like that happening? You're like, I'm tired of the car alarm going off. It just turn it off. That happens in our neighborhood. You know, it's like if there's enough wind or someone drives down the street, the alarm across the street goes off. It sounds just like one of the alarms that we have. It's like, well, which one is it? So even instead of checking, just turn it off and move on. So those things happen. Let's look at something else. So here we are. Here you are, and here are all of your devices. Here's another point. How could someone get access to your business network if they're not inside your business? Can you think of any way? They're not breaking in. Can you think of a way that someone could have access to your business without breaking in physically? So someone said yes. Wi-Fi. Absolutely. Wi-Fi. So here's some questions for you. Is your Wi-Fi secure? Now, why is that question? Because you might say, well, we put passwords on there. Not everyone is using the same Wi-Fi standards. Some may have a password, but it's not really secure. There's some that they're using old standards. They can crack immediately. So just like the key, who has the password to your Wi-Fi network? Has it been changed since the last employee left? Is your Wi-Fi always on, 24/7? With some, that's not commercial products. Well, the commercial products will allow you to turn it off after certain hours. Turn your Wi-Fi on, turn it off. But you begin to wonder, what if you haven't changed your password? What if someone figures it out? What if someone shares the password with someone else? Maybe because, you know what, they need Wi-Fi. Maybe the kids come in, a vendor says, you know, hey, do you guys have Wi-Fi access? All right, here we go. Someone gives them the Wi-Fi password. Maybe it's the alarm company because you have an alarm system. They said, no, I want to put Wi-Fi on there. Now you've just given it to the technician. So what devices would be accessible if someone had access to your Wi-Fi network? Is every device using the same on the same Wi-Fi network? Do you have a guest network? So when visitors, perhaps you have others. If, depending on the business, maybe you have parents and others that use it, staff. Do they use a different wireless network? And do they connect their personal devices to it? Or is it just the guest? Do you control what content is accessed? Do you control when they have access? So we had, there's one point says you turn the computer off. At the end of the day, the Wi-Fi is still on. Very true. What if someone is still connected to your Wi-Fi when you turn your computer on? Would you know? What devices are still connected? Do you have the alarm system Do you have a thermostat connected? Are your cameras on the same network? So you begin looking at anything that someone would have access to, whether your computer is there or not. They still have the key to get onto your network. So as we mentioned, 3 E's. Education. But what do we want? They have the saying, right? Knowledge is power. But what's superior to knowledge? Wisdom. There's an ancient book. It says wisdom is for protection. Wisdom superior than just knowledge. If you have knowledge and you don't know what to do with it, it's not going to help you. And you may have engineering controls. You may say, I need to do this, and I need this to happen and this to happen. But what if you don't know what technology you need to implement to make sure it happens, to put in those engineering type controls? And then you think about enforcement. What policies will you be able to write up, come up with, so that you can actually enforce them? So that whenever you bring on new employees, or you have a partner, whatever the case is, now you can educate them. Help them to understand the policies. What does it take in order to implement a policy? It's just taking that knowledge, transferring it to a piece of paper, or typing it up and digitally, and now educating someone. It's no different than, the training that you may provide for evacuation routes. Policies. This is what we're going to do. These are things that we're going to do. So now you implement them. Now you enforce them. Practice sessions. Does all that make sense? So these are all simple things that you can do. So now what we're going to do is we're going to test. We're going to test you. So take a look at this next scenario here. And maybe you've seen it. It's monkey business illusion.
Count how many times the player
Oops. Let's get this
is wearing white past the ball.
So, how many did you come up with? If you counted them all, put it in the chat. Tell me what did you find? How many times was the ball pass? All right, you got 11. All right. So this is the test. Test your focus here. The ball was passed.
The correct answer is 16 passes.
16 times. So we have 10, 12, 11, 16. Somewhere you missed some things, but let me ask you this. Here's did you notice the gorilla? Put in the chat if you saw. Did you see the gorilla? Yes or no? Or maybe you're thinking, what gorilla? There was a gorilla there? Did you notice? So you didn't notice the gorilla. So for some that have seen it, maybe there's like, I knew about the gorilla, but you guys didn't see the gorilla. But did you notice something else happening? Did you notice that the curtain changed? Did you notice that one of the players on the black team left the game? Did you catch all those other pieces? Did you notice the curtain change? No. Did you notice that one that was wearing a black shirt left? There was someone, they said there's too many folks in white. So now let's go back and look at this here. Let's rewind and then notice the changes. There's the gorilla. But did you notice the curtain? So what's the point? That isn't it true sometimes when you're so focused on something that you will miss other things? Isn't that true? Muted. So isn't that true? That many times when you're so focused on some things that you miss other things? Does that ever happen? Yeah. That happens. This happened to me. But now, let's see if you can. Let's take a look at something and see if you will be able to notice what's happening. See if you would pick out. And so here we have an email that has come in. Now you've done some things. You've taken your education. You started implementing some things. In fact, you've made changes to your email. You've added some email security. Now that security, it scans the links to see if they're malicious. It even clicks on them to see, you know what, that's malicious, it's not, or not. This one has passed. It went through and it says, you know what, Canva. How many of you have you ever used Canva? You know, some have used it. They use it for, they use it for marketing. They just use it for nice. There's nothing wrong with Canva, right? You can come up with some nice digital assets on Canva. So that's where the link goes. In fact, once you click on that link, it brings up a picture from Canva that says you have a new fax. Because the other one's mentioning that you have something, and it says print or preview here, and now it takes you, there's 2 pages, it takes you to the next piece in Canva. What do? I mean, it passed the security measures. It wasn't, that first link wasn't malicious. Would you click on the second one? Now, more than likely, you're like, I ain't going to click on nothing. But let's just say you were distracted. That it's like, well, the first one nothing happened. And so you click on this one. And guess what? Just like many of them, they're just like, all right, in order to see it, at least they have protection. You have a choice. You either can create an account. It's like, I don't want to do that. It says I can sign in with my email, so at least I don't have to remember on something else. So you click on whichever one fits, other or 365 or Outlook, and you sign in, and you see your invoice. Now, what just happened there? When you look at that URL up there, does that look like Adobe? When you take a look up, it looks nothing like Adobe here. Nothing like Adobe there. Malicious. In fact, that page was set up hoping that you would be distracted, that you would type your email and your password in. And guess what they have? They have your username, they have your password. quite interesting. So I'll tell you something that we did, because so it's interesting to play with these things. And so there was a phishing email that was caught, and I'm a curious person, so I wanted to know what was going to happen. So we took it in a test environment, clicked on the link just to be sure. It's like, yeah, well, there it was. It brought up a portal where it looked like their email login. And so I thought, well, let's just see. And so I just typed in whatever, and within minutes, I checked, and someone was already trying to log in with that username and password. These threat actors are good because they automate things. They automate, and they get, no doubt, they get an alert. It's like, this is it. Let me try it. We got one, and that's what they're waiting for. Many times you won't even know that you clicked on it. So we want you to stay focused. Don't miss the gorilla. Don't be so focused on the gorilla that you miss all the other things. But you weren't focused on the gorilla. You were focused on the passing of the ball, that you didn't see the gorilla. So we want you to stay focused. Stay focused. And so this, when we look at the future, we want you guys to look ahead. Let's say you start implementing these things. This here is the future of cybersecurity in small businesses. Now we've only really touched on, let's get the drawings out of there. We've only really touched on a couple things just in this area. I'll show you. We've only touched a few things really in this area here, in the prevention space. But when you think of the physical security, there's so many things that we didn't even cover, such as the people aspect. In the physical, you have your alarm system, people monitoring, and they're going to call you and alert you. That's what the Security Operations Center is, where now you have people looking in at the alerts and things. They look in to find out what's going on in the sensors, what's happening in the logs. They help you to implement a detection and response, so that if something looks odd, you can act. So what do we want you to do in order to get to the future? Well, we want you to plan ahead. Why? Because the reality is the storm's coming. No, we're not talking about that one. We're talking about that one. Isn't that what happens when all these things, your computer starts acting crazy? You don't have no idea which one it is. Is it pop-ups? Is it slow? Is it slow because now they're mining for Bitcoin? Who knows? Have I lost things? Whatever the case is, this is what we want you to plan for. Because the reality is, when you start to plan, the disaster incident is going to be there. What you can determine, you can only control 2 areas on this triangle here. Anyone know what those 2 areas are? Can you control? Let's see what we have in here. Can you control what you plan and how much you plan? That you can control. Which is why they have fire drills. If the fire drill is done right, can you control the damage? Because now you can begin eliminating. If everyone follows it, you can get everyone out. You can minimize the damage. So you can control how much you plan. You can control the damage. Now, of course, there's things that time and unforeseen, those things happen. But if we have proper planning, then you can begin to see what happens. The more you look ahead to the future and you begin planning for these things, you know you can't change the disaster. That's going to come at any time. You can't control what it's going to be, the size. That's all. That will be what it is. What it is. But you can minimize the damage if you have the right controls. If you're able to respond quick enough. If you're able to prevent it. If you're too hard to break in, guess what? They're not going to spend time on you. They're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go where the fish are biting. So there's things that you can do now, and not all of them will cost you a lot. But when you have someone else do it, then you'll incur more costs. So what do we want you to do? We want you to be focused. These are some things that we've learned there. Have unique passwords. Do not use administrator accounts all the time. Do not run as an administrator, but as a standard user. Have a separate admin accounts that's with a unique password for every computer. That's what the password manager is for. It's going to help you to keep track of those things. Use two-factor authentication everywhere you're able to do it. We've talked about secure configuration. Is it set up correctly? And you know, that's always going to change because patches and updates are made that will bring to mind insecurities that need to be fixed. So is it secure? Well, it's no doubt never really secure. There's always going to be something. But if it's set up properly from the beginning, then there's things that you'll be able to do. So in order to do that, we want you to stay alert. Stay alert. Who's on your network? Control those things. Be vigilant. So those are some things. So like we said, it's easier than you think. But it starts with education. And we want you to plan. Because the future is coming where you begin to realize this is the goal, and it's not really a technology decision, it's a business decision. So here's a question we're going to leave you with. Will you start investing now to get your house in order? Most of it's just going to be your time. And so we thank you for attending, for joining, for buying out the precious hour of your time with us today. And so if you have any questions, this is how you can get in touch with us. That's our number. What I'll do is we'll make sure that we send you that PDF as well on setting up those standard users. And so we look forward to the next time you join us. So any